Hey, good morning, and how are you guys doing today? I hope you're doing amazing. So, we're back and almost to finish up this book, which I'm super excited about having almost done. I hope you guys are doing amazing. It is, of course, 5 a.m., so I am still waking up and I'm getting shot up as we speak right now. So, and making sure we actually have a video, which is always a good sign, right? I hope you guys are kicking butt in your personal lives, doing amazing things. So we're at the last two chapters of this book. In all honesty, I am going to combine two of the chapters that were in the back of, previous. So this will be probably a 26 chapter book after it's formatted and everything else, okay? So let's get moving forward. And I'm going to change this right off the bat, right? Because I'm going to take it from they moved down the corridor to as the guards escorted us down the long corridor lit by torches. Let's change this long torch lit corridor instead of lit by torches. Okay, as the guards escorted us down the long, torch lit corridor, our hands tied, flanked by guards on both sides. Okay, I think we've fixed that. As the guards escorted us down the long, torch lit corridor, our hands tied, flanked by a guard to each side. The walls were worn with time. Okay, I noticed how worn the walls were with time, with strange glyphs carved deep. Intermixed among the glyphs on the walls were images depicting some horrific story. The depictions were from when the horrors arrived and took this planet, creating putrid abominations. The carving of the abominations depicted them as worshipped gods, showing scenes of transformation. The deeper we went into the earthen temple, the more I understood. These were worshippers of the abominations. Creations of the horrors. And I think I'm going to call them remnant creations. And I totally spelt that wrong, but I think that's it. Remnant creations of the horrors. Finally, we came to a large chamber arena where many of their people had gathered in their seats high above. It clearly served for their priests to perform sacrificial rituals as their people watched. In the open arena were three large statues with sacred altars below them and a large pit in the center. Trails of blood muddied the ground. Trails of blood muddied the ground, leading from the altars to the pit's edge. The statues were encrusted with gems, as the Vix had said, As Bjorn screamed out in anger, I noticed the body of what must have been Shauna, the missing Vic shaman. It was instantly clear she had been tortured and subjected to unspeakable acts before she finally passed away, her face set in twisted agony, bearing witness to the horrors she was subjected to. I looked at the native tribesmen. They all seemed to be defeated and consigned to their fate. Bjorn was clearly filled with rage, but now he was channeling all of his anger into waiting for the moment Magni would give the order. Then his rage would be unleashed, letting him take brutal revenge. I considered the Vix an ally. I knew the Vix were planning something, so I decided when they made their move, whatever it was, that would be my best chance. Then the man in the red robe stepped out of the corridor near the altar. I recognized him from my earlier encounter. He was wearing the jeweled crown with the ornate snake. He walked over, telling the guards a few words before they grabbed three of the tribesmen and took them to the altar. The guards then started moving the rest of us to the edge of the pit, motioning us to kneel. I watched as the Vixen tribesmen knelt, so I did the same, waiting for someone to make a move. The man in the red robes walked toward the first altar, as one of the natives was escorted to it and held down. The man in the red robes, holding a black dagger in his hand, was clearly a master priest of some sort. He stood there uttering some kind of prayer to the statue before plunging the dagger into the man's chest. As soon as the man in the red robes was done, he moved on to the next one, dispatching him in the same way, then the third as well. Once all three men lay dead, he walked to the edge of the pit, continuing with his strange utterance. As he stood there, the guards dragged the bodies of the sacrificed men to the pits and threw them in. They were an offering of some sort, but to what? Then the guards selected three more of the tribesmen and proceeded to repeat. But this time, as the tribesmen's bodies were thrown into the pit, I could hear something stirring below. The Vix also seemed to take note of this, and as the guards were selecting the next victim, they made their move. Magni looked over to his men, laughing as he raised his hands, which were now clearly free. Suddenly, Magni's hands motioned, forming a bright, crackling thunder rune. The force of the rune spell ripped through the air, striking the man in the red robes and a couple of the guards nearest to him. The force knocked them to the ground, stunning them, and the sound blasted violently through the room, deafening everyone for a moment. Bjorn and the other two minotaurs stood up quickly, breaking their ropes binding their hands, before Bjorn grabbed one of the guards, throwing him down the pit. At the same time, the other Vix started working to free themselves. Panic took hold of the guards, but they managed to spear. Okay. As panic took hold of the guards, and then we'll just boom. Okay. As panic took hold of the guards, they began fighting for their lives. One guard managed to spear spear a young Vic, killing him before he could free himself. Even the tribesmen started to try to free themselves. Shots started pouring in from the guards wielding our weapons, but they were badly aimed. The fire was dangerous, but only managed to kill some of the tribesmen and a couple of their guards before they dropped the weapons to flee. I freed myself from the bindings, and with the guards distracted by the chaos, his back was towards me. I pounced on him, ripping into his neck with my teeth and tearing out a large piece. He dropped his spear, but another guard turned and stabbed me through the shoulder and knocked me off him. The guard then helped the one I had bitten to his feet and fled towards the corridors, stone doors that were closing. The Vics were now armed, and even with the spears were more than a match for the remaining guards left trapped in the arena. As the last of the guards were slain, we realized all of the audience had fled, along with the priest in the robes. The stone doors had all been sealed, and the sounds from the pit were getting louder. Something frightening was coming, and the remaining 3 tribesmen knew it. Knew. Do we like this? Knew it as they began. I think we can get rid of that. Remaining tribesmen began to panic desperately, trying to open the stone doors. As the sound from the pit began coming closer, I climbed the arena wall to get to where the guard had dropped my plasma rifle and retrieved it. Let's go like that. Right then, 2 figures emerged from the pit. They were once men, but seemed broken and twisted. Initially, one of the Vics threw his spear, striking one of them. Oh, crap. Okay, like that. Striking one of them and causing him to fall backwards down the pit. The other one quickly moved forward to attack Bjorn, but I managed to fire my plasma rifle, striking it directly in the chest twice, killing it before it got to him. For a brief second we thought it might be over, but then an unholy scream echoed from the pit. One of the young Vics moved quickly to gather up one of the laser rifles the guards had dropped, as the sound from the pit increased. I watched as the Vic shaman began to cast some kind of rune spell in an attempt to seal the pit, which seemed to work for a moment, as more of the twisted creatures pushed against the invisible barrier at the top of the pit, unable to climb out. As the creatures worked to get through the barrier, the unholy screams grew louder. Suddenly, a blast of energy burst through the barrier, allowing the creatures to emerge from the pit. Then 2 large hands grabbed the top of the pit as a large humanoid, snake-like abomination emerged. Its upper body was like that of a large human, with eyes that surged with magical energy, and its lower body was that of a snake. Even with its tail coiled, it stood around 4 meters tall, towering above us. The Vics moved quickly, dispatching the twisted creatures with ease, but the abomination was too fast, grabbing one of the Vics and crushing the life from his body. I fired my plasma rifle, but an energy field seemed to surround the abomination, shielding it from most of the damage. Its eyes surged with power as energy formed in its hands, before it cast it towards the shaman. The shaman had some sort of protection spell around him, which managed to stop most of the blast, but it was powerful, and what got through knocked him across the floor, rendering him unconscious. But it was powerful enough to pierce through. Okay, I think we've got that right. But it was powerful enough to pierce through, knocking him across the floor, rendering him unconscious. I continued to fire, doing only minor damage to the abomination. I watched as the spears the others threw. Wait. I watched as the spears the others were using to fight with proved pointless. I don't know if I like that. I watched as the spears the others were using to fight. Okay, I think we fixed that. I watched as the spears the others were using to fight the abomination proved pointless. In desperation, one of the minotaurs charged forward, crashing into the abomination, its horns driving deep into it. As he pushed the abomination backwards, suddenly Bjorn yelled, "Push it into the pit, it's our only chance," as he ran in to aid his comrade. I began focusing on shooting the abomination's hands, hoping, let's comma there, right? Hoping it would slow its ability to attack the Vix, as the other Minotaurs charged in, also driving its horns into the abomination. Now bleeding and panicked, the abomination was being pushed back, but it was fighting. With each bit, okay, with each bit it was pushed. Do we want to call it inch? With each inch it was pushed, the abomination was landing destructive blows on the Vix, but they kept pushing. I kept firing, and its defenses slowly began to weaken. Then, as they finally got the abomination to the edge of the pit, it used its tail to grab one of the minotaurs before tumbling backwards uncontrollably down with him. For the moment, the room was cleared, and there was silence. Bjorn was injured slightly from the massive blows of... Let's make it more than slightly, right? Okay, Bjorn was injured seriously from the massive blows of the abomination, but still functioning. As we gathered ourselves from the battle, Bjorn hurried to the side of the shaman to try to revive him. Okay, so that's where we're at. We literally have one more chapter. Man, I'm excited about this being wrapped up soon. This has been super fun, and I am looking forward to writing another book. Likely we'll adjust it a little bit where I play games at this time in the morning, and maybe we try to figure out a later point in the day that we can write a book and rip it out. And it'll probably be a longer section because we'll be working on a book raw from the beginning, in which the making the stuff up part was the funnest part of this whole experience, just to be honest. And so, super fun so far. I want to thank you guys very much for hanging out, being epic. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for this, awesomeness of a day that I'm having. Peace, very best wishes, and you guys stay epic.